For the past 20 years, America's National Guard has not had a better champion and friend in the Congress of the United States. And I'm so honored and privileged this morning to be here with Representative Neil Abercrombie for having had the chance to work with him for many of these 20 years. Those of us in the military would just like to cut to the chase, bottom line, up front. The Neil Abercrombie that I know is one that is fearless. He will not hesitate to tackle the establishment. And now we're talking about the highest echelons in the Department of Defense and in the Pentagon. He is not afraid. Also, Representative Abercrombie is our watchdog as far as equipment for our National Guard, because he remembers the time during the early deployments when many of our Guard units had to leave our equipment behind in Iraq. So he's making sure that the National Guard gets rearmed and re-equipped to the tune of $800 million in 2008, and he's watching to make sure that $600 million is allocated to the Guard this go-around. And I feel a major legislation that Representative Abercrombie personally moved through Congress to get passed is that he co-authored TRICARE for Life. For those of us who serve, and for those of us who have served, we don't have to worry about the transition from Medicare to Medicaid, and can sort of watch with a little bit of envy right now on the national debate for health care, because we already have it. So we have Representative Abercrombie to thank for that. So I say again that the National Guard does not have a better friend in the Congress of the United States, and it's indeed my honor to present to you the Congressman, the representative from the state of Hawaii, the Honorable Neil Abercrombie.
I reflected when informed that I would have this opportunity today to appear at this particular function. It never occurred to me ever that my years of service on the Armed Services Committee might possibly come to this particular day. Even now, I find my emotions a bit difficult to keep in check, because the fact that the name of Harry Truman would be associated with this award, and that I might possibly find myself on this rostrum receiving it, is something that was inconceivable to me. Harry Truman is not just a hero to myself, but I'm sure many of you in this audience. And I thought perhaps I would look for a few items that measured Truman, because in his day, he was criticized, even vilified. And yet today we recognize him as one of the great leaders. And so I thought to myself, what can I say then in this context of an investment in dollars and cents, the theme of this convention, that would make sense in the context of what Harry Truman offered and why the National Guard Association of the United States associates its highest award with his name. And what occurred to me was, before he was president, he was a legislator, a respected United States senator, perhaps not well remembered in that regard, but he achieved his success and the respect that he gained as a result of his oversight on manufacturing for the armed forces. He knew what it took to equip and maintain the armed forces perhaps better than any other legislator in the United States Congress. And so I recalled something that I had read some years ago in John Gardner's book on leadership, which let me hold it over here so you can see it. John Gardner on leadership, where he wrote, John Gardner, of course, was advisor to President Kennedy. John Kennedy, the president of the Carnegie Foundation, a former Marine, of course, in World War II, one of the prime founders of Common Cause. And he wrote in his book on leadership, the prime task of legislators, of course, is to achieve results that reconcile multiple conflicting interests and to deal with those vexing circumstances in which equally worthy groups want mutually incompatible things. This requires coalition building and mediating. This honorable and necessary function often requires the skills of a horse trader and the capacity to persuade, cajole, even threaten and endear. Above all, what's required is building trust, keeping commitments, and more than anything else, character. Yet when Franklin Roosevelt died and Harry Truman became president, with this record, this kind of background as a legislator, the New York Times opinionated on its editorial page that Harry S. Truman was without experience, without knowledge, and without prestige. He was not seen as someone capable. He was not seen as someone who could be decisive and who could rise to the occasion. And yet this award is named for him. Why? Winston Churchill, subsequent to meeting Harry Truman and working with Harry Truman, both as the war ended and in the post-war world, recognizing that Truman had been pounded by criticism, said, I must confess, sir, that when I first met you, I held you in very low regard. I loathed your taking the place of Franklin Roosevelt. I misjudged you badly. Since that time, you more than any other man have saved Western civilization. What a remarkable statement. What a confession of misplaced judgment. Truman himself said, I became quite used to being vilified. It has its stimulating aspects. And for all I know, it may even be good for the liver. That was Harry Truman. He was able to get to the essence. He understood that he had a role to play, that he represented the ordinary citizen in the United States, and in fact had been criticized because he was seen as an ordinary, hard-working American, and therefore was subject by some to questioning, not to his patriotism, but to his capabilities, to his capacity to respond to crisis, to be able to measure up when called upon. Well, they didn't know Harry Truman very well, and they apparently didn't know the American people very well, because it's the Harry Trumans of this world, the hard-working, ordinary Americans, patriotic understanding of the values of this nation, knowing that they're in the freest country on the face of the earth in the history of the world, that makes up the National Guard and Reserve of the United States and America, and it's only right that this award be named after Harry Truman, because it's exactly in line with what the National Guard and Reserve is all about in this nation.